When we read the letters of Mary and Percy Shelley from their stay at Lake Geneva in 1816, it feels as though we are eavesdropping on the minds that gave birth to the Gothic imagination. These letters, written during storms, sleepless nights, and stolen moments of reflection, reveal something deeper than the creation of Frankenstein. They capture the heartbeat of two people bound by love, loss, and a shared hunger for meaning in a world trembling between faith and reason. They were not just writing to others. They were writing to themselves, preserving fragments of identity in an age haunted by mortality, memory, and uncertainty. By 1816, Mary Godwin and Percy Shelley had already become notorious figures in English society. Percy had abandoned his wife Harriet to run away with the teenage Mary, daughter of radical philosophers William Godwin and Mary Wollstonecraft. Their relationship scandalized polite society. Accompanying them was Claire Clairmont, Mary's stepsister who was pregnant with Lord Byron's child. Together they crossed into Switzerland carrying emotional wounds, financial instability, and public disgrace. Geneva offered temporary freedom from England's relentless moral scrutiny. The Shelleys' letters describe Lake Geneva with extraordinary emotional intensity. Percy wrote of the Alps as the palaces of nature. Mary focused on quieter details: still water, cold rain, distant thunder, and flashes of lightning illuminating the mountains. The landscape became more than scenery. Nature itself felt alive, unstable, and symbolic. The storms surrounding Villa Diodati mirrored the emotional turbulence within the group. Percy Shelley's correspondence radiates energy and restless curiosity. He described long walks with Byron, philosophical debates, ghost stories, and the strange silence that followed storms over the lake. His letters reveal a man intoxicated by ideas. Percy viewed nature almost spiritually, believing that hidden forces connected science, poetry, and the soul itself. Even his descriptions of weather carried philosophical meaning. Mary Shelley's letters feel quieter but emotionally devastating. She was grieving deeply. Her mother had died after giving birth to her, and she had already lost her first child. Those losses echo through her writing. Mary rarely dramatized her suffering directly. Instead, she observed the world around her with haunting clarity: the silence of the lake, the glow of lightning, and the feeling that memory itself lingered like a ghost. Within these letters, we begin to see the emotional roots of Frankenstein. Together, the Shelleys' letters feel like two halves of one consciousness. Percy's mind raced toward philosophy and possibility. Mary turned inward toward memory, grief, and emotional truth. Both were fascinated by science and nature, but they interpreted those forces differently. Percy saw divine mathematics, Mary saw fragility and mortality. Their relationship became both romantic partnership and intellectual collaboration. Lord Byron appears constantly within the Geneva correspondence. Percy admired Byron deeply, viewing him as both literary genius and tragic figure. Yet tension existed beneath that admiration. Byron mocked Percy's idealism, even while respecting his intellect. Percy once described Byron as a volcano beneath a calm surface. That description reflected both fascination and unease. The friendships formed that summer would shape Gothic literature forever. Mary's letters reveal the loneliness of being surrounded by brilliant men debating philosophy, while she silently carried emotional burdens of her own. She observed rather than interrupted. She listened rather than dominated conversation. Yet those observations became transformative. Her restraint gave her writing extraordinary power. The emotion she carried, grief, isolation, longing, and fear, would eventually become the emotional core of Frankenstein. From a genealogical perspective, these letters are living artifacts. Mary inherited intellectual radicalism from both Mary Wollstonecraft and William Godwin. Percy inherited aristocratic education, privilege, and intellectual ambition from generations of English gentry. Their letters reveal how personality, creativity, and worldview can echo through family lines. The Gothic imagination itself becomes a kind of inheritance. Mary Shelley later recalled that nothing calmed the mind more than a steady purpose. That purpose became Frankenstein. The novel did not emerge merely from scientific discussion. It emerged from emotional suffering, the fear of losing loved ones, the fear of isolation, the terror of creation itself. Mary transformed deeply personal grief into one of the most enduring works of Gothic literature ever written. The tragedy surrounding Villa Diodati only deepened in the years that followed. Percy Shelley drowned off the coast of Italy in 1822, at only 29 years old. Byron would later die in Greece. Mary, widowed at 24, devoted much of her remaining life to preserving Percy's legacy. She edited his poetry, protected his reputation, and safeguarded the letters that survived them both. Those writings became acts of remembrance. Mary Shelley understood something fundamental about writing. Words can outlive the body. Every letter she preserved became a form of resurrection. Through ink and paper, the dead continued speaking. That idea lies at the very heart of Gothic literature itself. The fear that memory may disappear, and the hope that stories can defeat oblivion. For historians, genealogists, and literary scholars, the Geneva letters are among the most valuable surviving primary sources of the Romantic era. They reveal not simply famous writers, but vulnerable human beings struggling to understand love, death, science, morality, and identity. The Gothic imagination did not emerge from abstraction. It emerged from deeply personal fears and desires. The letters allow those voices to survive centuries later. The letters of Mary and Percy Shelley remind us that every great artistic movement begins with deeply human experiences: love, loss, fear, and hope. The storms over Lake Geneva became immortal because someone wrote them down. Those letters still whisper across time, carrying the emotional DNA of the people who created Frankenstein and helped shape Gothic literature forever. Like genealogy itself, they preserve the traces of lives long gone. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 4 of the Bloodlines of Horror, Genealogy Behind the Gothic. In future episodes, we'll continue exploring the real lives, historical records, inherited trauma, literary inspirations, and genealogical mysteries behind Gothic horror and dark literature. We'll continue examining how memory, ancestry, psychology, history, and storytelling intertwine across generations. If you enjoyed this presentation, please like, subscribe, follow, and share.